All right, we'll walk through the questions now for sampling and studies for your quiz. So which sampling method is used in this scenario? So we're primarily looking at a candy company and they want to study buying habits of its customers. In this question, they create a unique number ID for each customer and use a random number generator to select 100 customers to participate. So everyone's in one group and they are numbered. So anytime you see a random number generator for labeling or identifying everyone, it's basically the simple random sample. All right, so you have everyone numbered all together, you throw all the names in the hat or all the numbers in a hat, and you randomly pick your individuals. So that is a simple random sample. Now they divide their customers into different age groups and randomly sample 25 customers from each age group. So they're grouped by age and they get one sample from each group. So it's like they're getting multiple samples. Well, that's called a stratified random sample. So in each group, they share something in common. They are similar ages. So you could have your teenagers and your middle schoolers, high schoolers, college, whatever. And you could sample them by those age groups and then say, oh, okay, we have the answer for this and that. And then you can combine them all together. So the idea here is to get representation from each group, and that is called a stratified random sample. Now they go to one of their store displays and survey every 30th customer. So this is the easiest one. You're looking for every whateverth, right? So that is called systematic sampling. And it's pretty much when you have people in a line and you just count off and say, I'm going to do that. Now, where's the random part, you might ask? Well, usually what you should do is randomly pick your starting point. Now, the person running the survey decides to ask 20 of his friends and coworkers, the very lazy sample called the convenience sample. So if you don't see any effort at randomization, that is a convenience sample, a very bad idea. All right, now they randomly select 3 of their stores and survey every customer in the 3 stores that day. So they pick 3 groups, aka clusters, by picking 3 stores. So that is a cluster sample because you're picking whole groups. You're not doing all the groups, just a few of the groups. So you throw the group names into the hat and then you randomly pick the name from the groups in the hat. And so if you pick store 112, you're going to survey everyone in store 112. So that is a cluster sample. Now they mail a survey to all of their customers. So they surveyed everyone everywhere. We call that a census. And there you go. All right. Now we're going to look at biases. What type of bias could result in this situation? Participants are asked in front of others if they wash their hands when going to the restroom. Well, we actually have done this survey, and when we do face-to-face, everyone says yes, and when we don't, only 75% say yes. So that means 1 in 4 of our students here have not washed their hands after going to the bathroom. Now, why do they do that face-to-face? They feel pressured to respond in a certain way. We call that response bias. So there's my little cartoon. Before I grade your tests, please complete this survey on my teacher performance. So again, that's called response bias when you're feeling forced to respond in a certain way. Students who are in class are asked why they might skip school. Well, the students who skip are probably not in class. A classroom is not the best place to survey these students. We probably want to go to their homes. And this is an undercoverage issue because our sample frame is at school, but our kids who we want to survey are not there. They're over here. So undercoverage is when the subject of interest can't get the question because you left them out of your sample frame. So that's undercoverage bias. All right, Subway mails out a survey asking about lunch preferences. Well, mailed surveys are mostly thrown in the trash because recipients don't respond. Not responding is called non-response. So we call this non-response bias. So it's when the subject does get the question, but they choose not to answer. So non-response bias. At the end of his latest video, a popular YouTuber asked his subscribers to do an optional survey. So since he's putting the survey up and not selecting respondents, he's relying on the viewers who are willing to volunteer to do the survey. So we call that voluntary response bias. If I said, oh, should we spend more money on the baseball program or the softball program, and I do the survey in the cafeteria, who's going to come up to answer my survey? People interested in baseball or softball. So that is called voluntary response bias. All right. Now, we're going to determine if these scenarios are an experiment or an observational study and whether they can determine association or causation. So here's the scenario. High consumption of full-fat cheese, yogurt, and milk is linked to a lower risk of cardiovascular disease, new research suggests. An international team of researchers examined the dairy fat intake of more than 4,000 Swedish 60-year-olds, using blood samples to obtain an accurate figure. They then followed the participants for an average of 17 years to see how many suffered cardiovascular problems. After adjusting for lifestyle factors, they found that those with the highest levels of dairy fatty acids in their blood had the lowest risk for cardiovascular disease and no increased risk of death from all causes. So, those with the highest levels of dairy fatty acids in their blood had the lowest risk for cardiovascular disease. All right, and no increased death. So there's definitely at least an association. And we don't know if it is, can we determine causation? So who did they do? What did they do? Well, they followed 40,000 Swedish 60-year-olds. So they just followed them. So this is an observational study. So we can only say that there's an association between high levels of dairy fatty acids, and lower risk of cardiovascular disease. Now, they try to make up for this in studies by trying to adjust for different factors, but the whole point of an experiment is if you use a randomized trial, then if it's a completely randomized experiment, then you have hopefully averaged out confounding variables. Here, because they just followed them, they try to adjust for it, but there's no guarantee that they adjusted for it. So there could be other factors involved that led to this association. All right, bad news for people who swear by diet sodas to cut calories, reports NPR. A new study suggests that the drinks may actually increase food cravings for some people. So the researchers recruited 74 volunteers who, after a 12-hour fast the day before, were randomly assigned to drink water sweetened either with natural sugar, sucralose, an artificial sweetener often used in diet sodas, or nothing at all. The volunteers underwent blood tests and MRI scans to record signs of unconscious hunger. 2 hours after the water, the volunteers were taken to a buffet where they could eat what they wanted. The researchers found that after consuming sucralose, women and obese people had greater brain reward activity cravings, in other words. In contrast, men and people in a healthy weight range showed increases in neither brain reward activity nor hunger response. So we had 74 volunteers, which means, by the way, you can only infer to people that are people like people who participated in this study. We did randomly assign, so that's good. This is an experiment. So we can only say that consuming sucralose causes higher cravings in women and obese people, compared, like those that participated in this study. Good luck on your quiz.